And now we quickly kickstart the summit with our first session for the day. I'd like to tell you that we are honored that Mr. Gadkari will also be the chief guest for our first panel discussion. So ladies and gentlemen, our first session, the next 10 years, gliding or rocketing ahead, will gauge the strength and sustainability of India's recovery. Now, it would also aim to visualize the country as it evolves over the next 10 years. Allow me to introduce our panelists here to you. We have with us Mr. Sanjay Baru. Let's have a round of applause as I introduce our esteemed panelists, Mr. Ravi Uppal, Mr. Amit Chandra, and of course, we are privileged to have Ms. Shweta Rajpal Kohli, who will be navigating and moderating the session. So it's over to you.
Thanks so much. I'd request the audience to just bear with us for a moment. This will be a televised session. We'll just begin in 30 seconds.
So just a few minutes till we set up. As of course, Ms. Kohli said, it's a televised show, so just give us a few minutes before we start.
The Indian economy is showing clear signs of bouncing back. The historic win by the Modi government last year has given fresh impetus that India's growth story is alive and kicking. Whether it's top industry leaders, foreign investors, or rating agencies, everyone seems to be now veering around the view that India is back in business. At the same time, the newfound confidence is also now being laced off late with some degree of impatience as well as nervousness on whether we will be able to truly deliver, on questions being raised really on the strength of our recovery and the pace of the reform process. Hello and welcome to this very, very special panel discussion, the next 10 years, gliding or rocketing ahead. I'm Shweta Rajpal Kohli, and it's a pleasure to have with us an esteemed panel. With us, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, Minister for Road Transport, Highways and Shipping. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Next to him, Mr. Ravi Uppal, CEO of Jindal Steel and Power, Mr. Sanjay Baru, Director of the International Institute of Strategic Studies, and to my left, Mr. Amit Chandra, Managing Director of Bain Capital. Let me kickstart this discussion by trying to get a sense of whether the next decade will truly belong to India, as Mr. Munjal had mentioned in his opening address. Mr. Gadkari, whether or not the next decade truly belongs to India will depend to a large extent on the ability of this government to deliver on some tough reforms. Does this government have the bandwidth to go ahead and press the button on some of those tricky and tough reforms, be it the GST bill or the land acquisition bill?
As far as the GST is concerned, already it is pending with the Parliament. And I am confident that probably in this session, we are going to pass that bill. So there is no question arise about GST now. As far as the land acquisition bill is also one of the important things. And as far as the bill is concerned, the 5 amendments are there. And not a single amendment is against the farmer and the poor people. But some people from the media, I am sorry to say, and some politicians, those who don't want the development of this country, creating problem for the country, to stop this process of development, that's why they're creating a political confusion in the mind of the people about this land acquisition bill. I am confident that there will be no problem, and we will try our level best to convince the opposition, because it is in the interest of the national interest. And suppose there are a lot of ways are open, but ultimately we are very much committed for that, and we will see that this bill be passed.
All right, so it's great to see that confidence. You, of course, mentioned the media, but it's the opposition that now seems united on the land acquisition bill. You've, of course, mentioned that you will make sure, and there are a lot of other ways, perhaps a joint session or other ways to push forward. At the same time, your government seems to be suffering from an image perception, being called a Soot Boot Ki Sarkar, a government which is only pro-corporate. How do you deal with these perceptions, and how would you convince the opposition that the land acquisition bill does not hurt the farmers?
From last many years, as far as my party is concerned, and we leader particularly belongs to BJP are concerned, we have got 2 problems. One is image versus reality, and ground reality versus the perception. You represent the English media. I don't want to criticize you, but you people trying from last many days to defame all of us. There is a political strategy to create in the mind of the people that we are against minorities. Second thing, we are pro-corporate and pro-rich. We are against the farmers and poor people. And third is that we are against scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. This is a political conspiracy the game is going on, because I don't waste your time for my political agenda. But the one thing is clear. After all these efforts from lot of people, from media, from the opposition party, still our party got the majority. Because the people in India, by and large, they understand what is the true thing, what are the true things, and what is exactly the ground reality. So that I always define it as India and Bharat. This Delhi, Mumbai is India. It is covered by English media, the 0.5 or 1% of people. They are already, I don't criticize anybody. But the main India is in Gaon. Gaon, Garib, Mazdoor, Kisan. And those people who know what is to be happen to this country and what need to be happen to this country. So
Right.
I'm confident that the people are understanding. After a lot of reports against Narendra Modi when he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, the people try every level to defame him, but ultimately the people of India elected him as a Prime Minister. Some people are very much disturbed because it is unexpected for them to see Narendra Modi and BJP as a ruling party in the center. Because of that, they are very nervous and frustrated. That's why they are doing a lot of things. It is going on. It is in democracy when the one party becomes strong, the other weak party united. That is the rule of the democracy. So it's
But
no
you're
matter
confident that
of-
the land bill will go through in this session itself.
Actually, some of the party already they have supporting is because there is nothing against the farmers. I am farmer. I am from the rural area. I am working with the farmer. I always giving challenge to many people who are opposing it, that let us tell me a single thing in these 5 amendments which is against the farmer. One, we consent clause and SI exempted for defense. Second thing, for low cost housing. Third, for rural infrastructure. Fourth, for the affordable housing. And somewhere it is from social infrastructure. Actually, this is all in the interest of the rural economy, rural people, the agriculture people, the industrial corridor. Every industry is now in Mumbai or Delhi or Bangalore or Chennai. If there is a decentralization of industry, in every village there is an industry, it creates more employment potential to the rural area. But in the mind of the perception, industrial corridor means it is in the interest of the industry. So somewhere there, the lot of people, they have some misunderstanding, but because of our stand, now the things are clear, and I feel that it will be no problem for us.
All right, it's good to see that confidence coming from you, Mr. Minister. Let me now move on and talk to Mr. Ravi Uppal, someone who really represents a very, very important sector of the economy on the ground reality, as Mr. Nitin Gadkari mentioned. It's fantastic to see those headlines that India is among the fastest growing economies in the world, perhaps the fastest growing, especially after the recent revision in the GDP numbers that we saw. But what is the real ground reality? How are things looking on the ground? Are projects taking off? Are we seeing industrial growth really picking up? Mr. Uppal.
First of all, I must compliment the Honourable Minister that his government has initiated multiple reforms to give a boost to the economy, and especially agree with him that if India has to move forward, that the rural economy must grow, and because that's what's going to generate the disposable income and is going to give a big impetus to the growth of demand in general. As far as industry is concerned, the investment process has started. I must say that the private sector, in the last couple of years, there was attrition in their confidence. It's taking a while for the private sector to bounce back. But in the meanwhile, government obviously has gauged the situation, and they're trying to sort of put a lot of investment to the public sector. I think the private sector will definitely bounce back, and the economy, I'm sure the industrial growth is going to take off. Some of the things that government has done recently, I think they will really go a long way, especially for the mine mineral industry and the industries which are based on the minerals. You know, the MMRDA Act, I'm sure, is going to give a big impetus to the growth of the industry. But I think one single issue, which is very important from the point of view of industry, is the cost of capital.
Right.
And the availability of capital. The capital in this country still costs very much, and is having a huge impact on the private sector coming forward and making the investments. So I really hope that the government will take some proactive steps to see how the cost of capital can be sort of brought down. And the second thing which is important is, you know, we can't just bank on, 50 to 100 major business houses to keep making all the investments. They also come under a huge amount of pressure. I think what is important is to encourage entrepreneurship, to reduce the barrier for the new generation of entrepreneurs to come. And not only in the e-commerce or the IT sector, where of course, in any case, the investment is low, but I think also in the small and medium sector, where the entrepreneurs who get into the industrial sector, they face multiple problems, especially with regard to availability of the working capital to sustain their business. So if the government could take steps to show a little more sensitivity to the concerns of medium and small industry, I think that will also become a big boost to the growth of the major industries. Because industrial clusters are getting created, and the big units, they always have the small and medium sectors which feed into them. So I think that sector especially requires a lot of investment. One thing which our government is now focusing a lot on, which I think is extremely vital, is skilling of India.
Right.
I think we find, although a lot of people are getting the conventional degrees and diplomas, but the level of skills which are available for them to make a productive contribution to industry is still very limited. I think it has to be a coordinated effort between the government and the private sector, and that is going to really sort of help us enhance our productivity in a big way.
Sure. Mr. Sanjay Baru, if I could come to you on the theme of today's panel discussion, and that's really something that world over people are focusing on. India's growth model. What is the model that India will follow here on for the next 10 decades? Will we be gliding ahead or will we rocket ahead?
Well, first of all, I don't think we'll either glide or rocket.
Okay.
I think we will have a bumpy ride ahead. The problem in our country is that whenever things are going well, we become very euphoric.
Right.
And then when things slow down, we become despondent. From 2003 to 2009, we had 9% growth every year, year on year, and we thought we were going to catch up with China and India was going to be the great next story of the world, etc., etc. After 2012, when the growth slowed down, we were all in despair that we thought India had lost it. But I take the long view. And the long view is that from 1950 to 1980, for 30 years, the average growth rate of this country was 3.5%. From 1980 to 2000, for 20 years, the average rate of growth was 5.5%.
Right.
From 2000 till now, the average rate of growth has been about 7.5%, roughly. So 3.5, 5.5, 7.5. What's the trajectory? The trajectory is a rising trajectory.
Right.
So India is on a rising trajectory. It has a lot to do in order to be able to sustain this. I don't think I'd waste my time predicting that we'll be like the West in 10 years from now,
Sure.
predicting that we'll have 9% growth over the next decade, predicting that things are going to be hunky-dory. No, the ride will be bumpy.
Okay.
There'll be years in which we'll do well, there'll be years in which we won't do well. But the long-term trajectory for India is a positive trajectory. And any investor today will have to look at that long term. But there's a lot we need to do. Education, basics.
Sure.
We still have a country with a highly unskilled labor. You walk around even a highly developed urban metropolis. I mean, my friend Sunil Munjal was talking about parts of India being like the West. You go to those parts of India which seem like the West, right? Like Gurgaon. You have construction workers who are barely naked. You go to any construction site in China, they are all clothed, they wear gloves, they wear helmets.
So we are far away from...
Like your Delhi metro workers, every construction laborer in China today is like your Delhi metro worker. But you go to the fanciest malls in Gurgaon and look at the construction workers, they are barely clothed.
Sure. I'd like to take that point forward, and you mentioned that it is going to be a bumpy road ahead. It's clearly up to ministers like Mr. Gadkari, in his case, quite literally to ensure, as the road and transport minister, that the ride ahead is not all that bumpy. But Amit Chandra, if I could come to you, particularly on the upsides and the downsides that India faces right now. You heard Sanjay Baru say it's going to be a bumpy road ahead. At the same time, we're talking about really India being one of the fastest growing economies in the world. There's no taking away from the fact that the India story is being watched by the world. What could be some of the potential upsides and downsides over the next 10 years?
Yeah, I think Shweta, Sanjay set it up really well. I think by and large, folks in the corporate world and investors, I think we are wrong on two counts. We are wrong on both the short term and we are wrong on the medium to long term. We are wrong on the short term because of our impatience with, the results. it didn't take 1 year to bring the India story to a grinding halt. It
Right.
took 3-4 years of taking your eye off the ball, as Sanjay was pointing it out. It takes a long time to slow a ship down. And I think to expect overnight results is, in my view, bordering on ridiculous.
So you're saying that the impatience being
I think it's very
shown by-
misplaced.
is
I
very
think the
misplaced.
impatience
Okay.
is misplaced. I
Okay.
think there are clearly visible signs of green shoots, and I think a lot of people, I think, are wrong with the degree or the expectation that they have for results that they could see in 2015 and even 2016. I also think most of those folks are also wrong about what the medium to long-term potential is. And I completely agree with Sanjay again on this. If you look at the trajectory, as long as we put in the right enablers for growth, there are so many low-hanging fruits in this economy. Gadkari ji spoke about a lot of interesting things, areas where we could do massive import substitution and add it not just to
Right.
our domestic production, but also, take the pressure off current account deficit and exchange. There's so many opportunities before us that there is no reason why the medium to long-term trajectory cannot be a number in the region of 8 to 10%.
Right.
Again, I think the risk for us will always be that when we get close to that, we again will take our eye off the ball and get overly euphoric, as we got overly despondent in the last few years. So at least I think from our vantage point, I have no doubt in saying that India looks like one of the most interesting places in the world to put money to work in.
Right.
The private equity industry accounted for about 40-50% of all FDI in this country. So it was the single biggest chunk of FDI in this country. That number has halved from the peak at an average in the last 3 or 4 years, in an economy that's grown 35% in that period. There is no reason why that number cannot triple in the next 3 years, as long as we see the right enablers in place.
Sure.
The ease of doing business is easy. And then think of the multiplier effect of that investment in terms of job creation, in terms of eliminating supply side bottlenecks. So at least I think we are, I would say, probably more bullish today than we've been in the last 8 years that we've been in India.
Right, the kind of bullishness that we've not seen in a long time. Mr. Gadkari, you've heard various views now. Would you agree with what we are hearing right now, that some of that impatience coming in, the expectation, perhaps one side of the view is that the high expectation from the government is its own doing. After all, it's the government that's brought with it the hope, the excitement, the expectation that India will be quickly back in business. At the same time, there is that growing impatience. Do you think that impatience is misplaced? Do you think we need to give the government a little more time to actually deliver, or do you think that pressure is also important to make sure that you don't get your eye off the ball?
I personally feel that it will take some time, because there are a lot of challenges. What he's saying is absolutely correct. The capital cost is very high compared with the economy of different part of the countries in the world. So the interest cost even in infrastructure for 13% and 12%, it's really difficult.
Right.
Even for industry also it is difficult. So there are a lot of challenges. It's not a very easy path. But I always say one thing, there are some people who convert problems into opportunities, and there are some people who convert opportunities into the problems. So only my submission is, a humble submission is, there are challenges. Situation is difficult. We have to face a lot of the problems. We have to make the equilibrium between the rural economy and industrial economy and the service sector. We have to create more employment potential. We have to think about not only about Delhi, Mumbai, Calcutta and Chennai. We have to think about the huge population in the villages. There are some points are absolutely, we need skilled manpower. We need diversification of educations toward the professional and technical education. So a lot of challenges are there. Only one thing which I want to assure you, that we are on the correct path.
Right.
The path is very difficult. Lot of challenges are there. People have expectation. It is obvious and natural. But I only want to convey only one thing, that sincerely, honestly, under the leadership of Prime Minister, we are very much committed for our goal, and we are marching towards to fulfill the satisfaction of the people of this country by large.
How long before we see that 9% growth number? Because everybody is waiting. In fact, we're already talking about the potential being double digit. So we're on the right path, but for those who are impatient, how long before we get there?
It's a very difficult question, but I am not giving you any promise because otherwise I have a track record that my credibility in media is good. It is our target. I am not going to assure you that we will get 9%, but I feel that in my sector particularly, the road sector, the shipping and inland waterways, and transport sector, these three sectors are with me.
Right.
And I'm confident that my target is, still it's my target, it's not
Sure.
my commitment. It's a
Okay.
target with me to at least add 2% of GDP for this country. I'm trying level based, I'm making a lot of efforts for that. There are problems. Land acquisition is a big problem.
Right.
Forest environment clear. In India, the scenario is such that no one is come to you to start this work. Everyone comes to you that you stop this work.
Okay.
And somewhere even I respect judiciary, but there is also a lot of decision they want to stop it. No, don't do it. So escalation cost is there, interest cost is there, lot of problems are there. But I feel that these are the challenges, and our basic challenge is to convert these all problems into opportunities and to go for the 9% growth rate. And that is our target under the leadership of Prime Minister. I am confident that we may succeed in it. But we are trying for that very hardly.
Mr. Gadkari, is there almost a year down the line, is there a sense of realism that has now come within the government? The fact that the road is not all that easy as it had seemed despite that stupendous win that the government got? You yourself mentioned a number of challenges, including the judiciary, including passing some of those tough reforms. Do you think there's that realism coming in now that it's not all that easy?
No, actually, lot of people in our government, somewhere they have some experience. I was
Right.
minister in Maharashtra when I constructed Bombay-Pune Express Highway and Worli-Bandra Ceiling project and these 55 flyovers. I always say that it is easy to construct express highway, but it is more difficult to get environment and forest clearance for that.
Right.
So these are the challenges. We are a democratic country, and we are on many of the leaders are grassroots leaders.
Right.
So I started my political career from my grassroots level. So I know small problems from the small levels. So, but in a present situation under the leadership, the way in which the things are moving fast, we are getting the results. I just give you the statistic of the road sector. It is
Sure.
on the record. It is changed. Still there are problems are there. So, but I am confident that our Prime Minister is very positive. First of all, the government is very sensitive about taking decisions.
Right.
Some upon a time there was a policy. Not taking a decision was a policy. Now everywhere we are taking the decision. A Prime Minister, whether people may have some reservation about it, some may call it a wrong vision or correct vision, but the Prime Minister with a vision, he is taking decisions, he is moving fast, and the ministry and the cabinet also taking the decisions. And also at the time, Prime Minister and Senior Minister, we are all of the opinion how we can boost our system to achieve our goal. Still problems are there, but I feel that in due course of time, we will try to fulfill the satisfaction of the people.
Sure, I'd like to quickly focus on an area which really comes under your jurisdiction. India, of course, has been making headlines for the right reason. Our right reasons, our growth rates clearly around the world are being seen as enviable. But one area in which India is making headlines for all the wrong reasons is, of course, the pollution levels, the toxic air that we're breathing in Delhi. Fresh data really showing that in the last 2 years, we only had 7 days of good quality air. At the same time, we've seen the National Green Tribunal go ahead and ask for certain strict things to be put in place. And then, of course, we've got the government saying you need more time to implement what the NGT is saying. Do you think that goes against the grain of the Modi government, the fact that there's need for quick decision making to turn things around rather quickly?
First of all, the decision of the Green Tribunal, I respect it. And that is a correct decision. I am also of the same opinion, what they express. But the problem is that within 2 weeks, you cannot solve this problem. There are a lot of poor people, they take the loan from the banks and they have to pay that money back to the bank with interest. It will create a lot of problems. From last 10 years, probably you don't know about my background, I am working on diversification of agriculture towards energy and power sector.
Right.
In my city in Nagpur, we have started the buses on the 100% ethanol. biodiesel, biogas. And we are our city, the first city in the country. We sell our sewage water with 18 crore rupees to government of Maharashtra. And now we are making methane from that. And from methane we get bio-CNG, and our plan is to run 100 buses in Nagpur for green fuel. This pollution is a big problem. And I am constantly trying for all these things. But now if we want to convert the diesel buses on CNG, we need the technology, we need the kits. It takes some time. We have to give some time to the transporter for that. So my only submission is that give some time, because this is a long back problem. We cannot solve this problem
do we
within 2
have the
weeks.
luxury of time? Does it, as the road transport highways minister, does it not concern you that today Delhi is the most polluted city in the world, that India is making headlines for all the wrong reasons on the pollution account?
First of all, the pollution is a big problem, and I'm of the same opinion which you have. It's really a problematic situation, and even to create awareness in the mind of the people is very essential. I welcome the decision of the Green Tribunal.
Right.
But the problem is that somewhere you have to find out the problems related with the poor people. The transporter come to me. How it is possible for any government, even for God, to solve this problem within 2 weeks? If anyone has solution, please give it to me.
So you're saying
We have to
it's
think
not
about
practical.
we have to think about the pollution, ethics, ecology, and environment. At the same time, we have to think about the poor people, and that's why the government is responsible for all. So our main mission is to how to solve this problem as early as possible. I am confident my ministry, now we have taken a decision, the Euro, these standards for 2000.
Right.
Now we are also making some arrangements by discussing the automobile industry to go for Euro 6.
Absolutely.
But it will take some time. They have some problems. So probably, as far as the mission for me is, we need Swachha Bharat, Pradushan Mukta Bharat.
So what is the commitment you're giving to all those school children out there, to all the people in these cities who are breathing this toxic air? Can we get some commitments coming from you as the minister?
100%. Within 2 years, definitely there will be a drastic change. And as a Minister of Transport, who is very much committed for this cause, and before I became a minister from 8 years, I am working on the ethanol, biodiesel, and the bio-CNG and everything. So I am of the opinions, and important thing is, as far as our economy is concerned, we have an import of 6 lakh crores of this petrol, diesel and gas, and creating more pollution in the country. So the automobile industry, I always convey my feeling about them, that please serious about this pollution problem.
But it's a huge lobby out there, the auto industry at the same time. I know we're sitting at a forum, but at the same time, it's important to raise these issues. How do you balance those interests at a time when you need to take some tough decisions
actually,
also?
4 months before, there was a big conference, and already I given them a message. You come with me. If you don't want to come, I will encourage foreign companies and foreign technology, and I'm going to start it. I am not going to stop for you.
Okay.
At any cost, we have to change this situation as far as the pollution is concerned.
Right.
If you are prepared, okay. If you are not prepared, we will encourage the other technology, other companies. Like that, we now giving importance to Scania. We will call Volkswagen. We will call other people. If you don't want to change, it's up to you to decide about it. But as far as the pollution is concerned, we are serious. And in due course of time, we want to definitely solve this problem, because this pollution is not good for our children. And absolutely, I am with the same opinion like you.
Right, so a very strong message there coming from the minister. Perhaps we could have a round of applause for that we've got a commitment coming from him with regard to pollution levels, something that's clearly been making headlines around the world. Mr. Uppal, let me focus back on the real ground reality that we were talking about. I remember talking to you around the budget about what's the situation on the ground, and I remember you actually mentioned that the kind of pain that your industry is seeing is something you haven't seen in the last 10 years. Do you think enough changes have been made in the last 1 year to ease up that pain? You mentioned cost of capital, but do you think much, much more needs to be done before we see that fast recovery coming in?
But the industry I talked to you about earlier is basically core sector industries like steel, metals industry, and the power industry. I mean, it's a common knowledge that these industries have gone through a very trying time, but a lot of reforms have been put in place. For example, if you take the power industry, the main issue which was affecting it was the availability of the fuel, among other, less important reasons. And now the government is trying to make the fuel available by, selling the coal blocks They are also offering to sell the coal linkages and also increasing the output of coal in India. You know, I think, you know, I was listening to the other panelists. I mean, you know, they said talking about the bumpy journey.
Right.
I think everyone here in the panel or in the audience may have good reason to be a little cynical and, you know, somewhat apprehensive about what kind of growth we will have in future. I think what I find is different this time around. The government, after they assumed the office, they have basically focused on making reforms. You know, reforms, policy reforms, economic reforms, and you know, it takes you a little while before you get to see the results of the positive impact which comes out of reforms.
Sure.
I know that we are all very impatient, having gone through a rough period, especially in the last 3 years' time, when the growth had touched almost its all-time low. So, but I'm absolutely convinced that some of the reforms will show the results. As for steel and power industry that you were mentioning about, I think there, once again, these are very investment-intensive industries. It just so happened for steel industry, for example, globally there's a slowdown. And you know, the whole commodity market has gone into a bit of a rough patch. But I'm sure that it's cyclical. We're going to emerge out of it, and India, once again, will do well on this sector. You know, coming to the overall growth, I just want to take the liberty of making a comment. You know, if you look at our total GDP, 64% is coming from service sector as of now, 22% coming from industry, about 14% is coming from agriculture. So I think if we go along with, you know, achieving 8 to 10% on service sector, that contributes to us about 6%. And if we have to hit about 9%, all that it requires is that in the agriculture and in the industrial sector, we need to post a growth of industry about 8 to 10% and agriculture 4 to 5%. And I truly believe that it is not difficult to achieve that. You know, if we have a synchronized act, you know, in terms of investment, in terms of support from government, better state and center coordination, I'm sure that is a doable act.
All right, a doable act indeed. Mr. Sajay Baru, if I could talk to you about some of the milestones we talk about when we talk about India's 10-year journey. 100 million jobs to be created, an economy that would be worth $4 trillion or even more. The Sensex perhaps touching the 1 lakh level, even though of late we've been seeing some sort of nervousness coming in. Are those goals looking achievable? You talked about bumps in the road ahead, but overall, do you think, as Mr. Gadkari said, we seem to be on the right path?
All the milestones you mentioned are amusing. The one milestone I would look for is a time when you have 80% literacy and a more skilled workforce. There is not a single modern industrial nation in the world or in Asia or anywhere that does not have 80% or more literacy.
Right.
These are preconditions for growth.
Right.
You know, the milestones are not your Sensex and your industrial
growth. If you could hold
the
that thought, if I could...
No, 1 minute, let me finish.
Sure.
The preconditions for growth, for sustained growth. Now, I'm not being cynical. I began by saying that the story of the last 70 years is 3.5, 5.5, 7.5.
Right.
India is on a rising trajectory. But this rising trajectory has been full of ups and downs. So the ride ahead is not going to be smooth gliding, is not going to be missile-like taking off, it will be bumpy. But the preconditions for sustained growth are yet to be in place. And the biggest problem this country has is that most of the growth is coming in regions which have lower density of population. And there is very little growth coming in regions where there is high density of population. And it's in those regions of high density of population, whether it's Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, the Indo-Gangetic Plain, where you have a large number of poor people.
Right.
And one of the consequences of this distorted regional pattern of growth is that we have very high migration.
Sure.
And migration has social consequences. You know, these are all serious issues.
Okay, I'd like you to answer to some of those questions. And while we keep talking about India's growth story, the fact that we could be gliding ahead or rocketing ahead, Mr. Baru's view clearly is that no, unless you fulfill some of those basic parameters, those social indicators that he's talking about, literacy levels, the fact that we don't have a skilled workforce, he talked about the state of India's
primary, secondary, as well as higher education levels. I think our growth will not just be bumpy, but will probably at some point of time hit a serious roadblock. And I think, you know, there needs to be massive emphasis in dramatically improving the quality at all those levels, skills included. And I think Gadkari ji made a very interesting point about problems sometimes being opportunities. And Sanjay talked about skills. You know, my wife and I are involved in running skill centers in Bihar and Orissa. I can tell you the transformation that you can see on a family when you skill a family is dramatic, because today what happens is people in those areas have to migrate. The quality of their life suffers. They leave behind families. They have just terrible lives, pretty much in perpetuity. When you actually start equipping them with skills which are valuable in places that they don't have to, migrate to dramatically long distances, you start seeing them saving, you start seeing their quality of life dramatically improve. And there are now enough number of scale projects running which show how dramatically you can improve living standards by just skilling people. And I know that this government is focusing a lot on skills. So I think education and skills got to be two massive enablers where one needs to invest in. I'll make one more point again on the theme that Mr. Gadkari talked about of problems being an opportunity. And since he spoke about pollution, it's interesting because if you think about the pollution problem and the components to it, if we actually have massive investment in public infrastructure, particularly transportation, because historically our mindset has been to solve for problems by making it easier for having more cars on the road and more bikes on the road. But if we just turn it on the head and do some of the things that he talked about, Mumbai, we rarely use boats other than going to Alibag, right? You go to Hong Kong, you're using boats every time to just cross from the mainland to Kowloon, right? There's no reason why, at least for 10 months out of 12, that we can't have this, 3 hours that it takes to go from South Mumbai to North Mumbai, and you can cover that distance in 30 or 45 minutes, and think about being able to do that at much lower levels of pollution. So big investments in public transportation is actually a big opportunity to solve for the pollution problem in a big way. And when it comes to technology, again, there is a big opportunity there. Hero just released a bike which clocks 102 kilometers a liter. Right. When I started riding scooters, I used to get barely 20 or 30 kilometers a liter. Right. But the problem is that if you look at an installed base of two-wheelers, a very large percentage of our installed base is more than 10 years old and will barely give half the average of what today's vehicles give. At the peak of the global financial crisis, Obama came up with a remarkable initiative where they started giving credits for people who wanted to trade in inefficient, depreciated vehicles. It had an amazing benefit for the automobile industry. So while the auto industry might feel that there's risk, there's actually opportunity as well. Sure. If you start phasing out vehicles, you'll actually see a lot more growth.
So, Mr. Minister, perhaps the broader theme of what Amit is pointing to is innovative thinking. The fact that there are these low-hanging fruit, the fact that the expectation from the government was not just to deliver on those big, bold reforms, but also go ahead and bring about these changes which would dramatically change the lives of people. So, is that expectation unfair? And how would you respond to those who said that, yes, while too much talk has happened, we need more action on the ground, not just those big, bold changes, but also little changes that will make a huge difference?
I feel that the people have a lot of expectations from our government, but there is no shortcut.
Right.
If the shortcut is there, shortcut cut you short. So now he is absolutely correct about the skill development, about the education, about the health problems. These are the important issues. We are not only think about this growth rate and other thing. We need integrated development. It from the rural area, from the urban area, and there are a lot of problems we are facing because we neglect our rural economy. So at the same time, we have to think about good education, we have to think about the skill development, we have to think about the progressive agriculture, we have to think about giving more irrigation, we have to solve the problems of power sector. I just give an example. I am from Nagpur. The WCL, Western Coalfield Headquarters is in Nagpur. From last 50 years, their production of coal was 35 million tons.
Right.
But after this Land Acquisition Act passed, I had taken a big conference of the farmers and receiving the problems from them. The 2,000 problems I received. We have taken a decision to give them 1:4 in the rural area, the compensation. I tell you what is the miracle is there. We have already opened 3 mines in the presence of Piyush Goyal, and now our MD, Mr. Mishra, declared that every month at the date 25, we will open new mine. So within 1 year, the production of coal from WCL is going to 30 million ton to 100 million ton. Now this Land Acquisition Act, whatever opinion you may have, but because of, if suppose there the escalation cost is there, interest cost is there, I feel that to give more compensation to land acquisition, it is also a option for that. And by which we increase our production is compared with the WCL, last 50 years, 35 million ton, and this 1 year, it will go 100 million ton. So if they get the coal, this to solve the problem for the power sector. So these are the things, small things, everywhere, a small change, it accelerates the growth and solve the problem. But there are, I still admit from all the panels that there are problems. Many problems related to the different areas is education, health sector, skill development, technical education, the manpower, all these things are there. But only I will give you one assurance that our government is working on an integrated planning. And 100%, these are all important issues. And we are considering all these problems related with the different fields.
Right.
And I feel that we will get some results from it.
All right, I'm going to throw open the house to questions before we start wrapping up. I know we have a very, very tight schedule ahead. If we could quickly have maybe just 3 questions from the audience for our panelists. Dr. Baira,
Yes.
yes, go ahead, sir. If someone could please get a mic to the gentleman there.
Before he receives the mic, I already have a mic in my hand. Here.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
So my name is Sanjoy Day. I've been working with the missions, high commissions, and embassies for the last 40 years, and I've come to the conclusion that Indian businessmen have no dearth of money. But what they do is they want to achieve everything rapidly and fast, which means a short time gain and lack of sustainability. I'll give you an example to what I'm saying. An English.
So if I could just interrupt you
Yes.
here, because we are very short on time, I just request
In
all those who are
2
asking
lines.
questions to make a pointed question and not a
yes,
comment, sir.
Exactly.
Please.
This one is what I'm going to say.
Go ahead.
An Englishman was telling his Indian friend about his garden. He said, my lawn is old, very, very old, 300 years or more, I'm told. It heard the news of Waterloo, and it saw the Roundheads marching through. The man looked at the lawn today, and how the Englishman laughed to hear him say, the grass in your lawn looks nice and flat. Next year, I'll have a lawn like that. Thank you.
All right, so is there a question there, or I can just pass it on? Okay, go ahead, sir.
This is Prabir Bakshi, George Washington University, and now come back as Vice Chancellor of SRM University. I like what Sanjay Baru had to say. My question is to the Honorable Minister. We seem to be announcing new IITs, new programs, without having the ingredients in place. 40% of the IITs have only 40% faculty. What are you doing in reality to reskill the workforce? Not slogans on the ground. What are you going to do? We have to have a long-term view. Tell me the long-term view. Thank you.
The investment for the education is really an investment for the future of the country. So as far as Mr. Baru is concerned, I am of the same opinion. So we have to, there are a lot of opinions are there between the universities and Vice Chancellor that what should be emphasis on it. But the one important thing is we have already planned considering the future development in the world. And now we allowing the foreign university, foreign knowledge, foreign technology also. I feel that we are trying our level best to get the best education of world standard to our students. And the most important thing, for some days I was rural minister. At that time we started that Deen Dayal Kaushalya Vikas Yojana from urban area and for rural area. The skill development, the technical education is very important. And he is absolutely correct that giving this education to the poor people and particular area like Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand. And we should emphasize this program particularly in the backward states, those who are socially, economically, educationally backward.
Right.
Because inclusive growth is very important. So we are trying for that. As far as the education is concerned, I have some relation with it, but I don't know exactly the details program about it.
Sure.
But what he says is absolutely correct, and we are working on the same manner.
All right, I believe we are really running out of time because I'm sorry, the minister has to leave. He's got some very, very important engagements. I'm sure if you could reserve your question for the next session, I'd be grateful. Thanks so much, all of you, for being such a patient and wonderful audience. And many, many thanks to all our panelists for sharing very, very great insights. Clearly, the big message coming out of today's panel discussion is that, yes, India may not be gliding or rocketing ahead, but we are certainly on the right path, the right growth trajectory. Yes, there will be a few bumps on the way, but it is for ministers like Mr. Gadkari and for Team Modi to ensure that these bumps don't turn into real roadblocks and that we can overcome them. And as he said, turn the challenges into real opportunities. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us and sharing.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Minister.
Ladies and gentlemen, an absolutely brilliant session. So we don't know about the next 10 years for India, but we do know that the 9th edition of the Mind Summit is off to a flying start. So let's have a big round of applause for all our panelists. And at this point, I would like to request Mr. Sunilkant Munjalji to please come and give the concluding remarks to this session. Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir.
I don't think you can actually conclude this discussion because this discussion is actually only just begun. And it's clear that the direction we're in is right. We all need to both have patience and continue to push for the right things to happen at the right time. Both support the system as also keep a watch that the system is going in the right direction. And we need more action-oriented minister like the one we have here, who's focused on dramatically both increasing the quantum of infrastructure as also the quality of infrastructure, and both, by the way, being equally important. And thank you, Amit, for your very sharp comments on where the opportunities lies. Sanjay, you're absolutely right that our direction is right, but is this enough? I mean, that's a question we need to keep asking ourselves. Can we sustain at this pace, or do we need to make this higher? Because our population is still growing. Our biggest challenge of extreme and abject poverty and is still there, and that's one of the big challenges we need to address. And the minister is absolutely right that you have to fix the rural economy. You cannot otherwise fix all of India, which is why the only answer we really have is growth. The only thing we can distribute is prosperity. Therefore, the focus, therefore the government's focus on growing economy and industry actually is not wrong. It's in favor of the whole system. It's not one against the other. And that's what India is. We are not a nation. We are actually a continent in many aspects, both in size, scale, and diversity. So thank you for your comments, Ravi, on what on the ground needs to happen to make things move quicker, make them easier, and really ease of doing business for the economy's point of view is not only good for business, it's actually good for India, for us to push forward with the economy, to make India more inclusive and a more forward-looking nation. Thank you all very much. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your comments.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to request Mr. Pawan Munjal to please present a memento to the Honorable Minister. So if you could request Mr. Pawan Munjal to present a quick memento to the Honorable Minister. Yes, absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the Honorable Minister who's taken out time from his busy schedule to be with us here today. It was really a privilege to have you here. And request Mr. Pawan Munjal to please present a memento to Ms. Shweta Rajpal Kohli for steering the session so brilliantly. Also present a memento to Mr. Sanjay Baru, Mr. Ravi Uppal, and Mr. Amit Chandra. Thank you so much, the Honourable Minister, and thank you so much to all our esteemed panelists for that very brilliant session.